one of the things I want to comment on in all the thousands and thousands of people I've worked with in my career, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people, there is not one single person who is the same as the next. Not one. And that's why I love this work, because everybody is so unique. So every single person has something unique to them that I encourage them to find and give to the world. It's actually sharing some beauty to the world that they've never seen because they don't have it.
Lois Arthur, MED, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified IFS and certified EMDR. Lois is a licensed marriage and family therapist who has devoted her career to helping others heal from trauma, addiction, and loss. She's deeply committed to her clients and the fulfillment of their needs until they reach personal self-realization. Her recent work includes therapeutic consultation, stress-busting techniques to corporations and groups, meditation training to organizations and groups. Her love of her work includes supporting clients from trauma to peak performance using a wide range of modalities. Reaching self-realization is among one of her joys in life. She is an agent of change. And I'm privileged to have my dear friend Lois Arthur with us today on this podcast for The Art of Aliveness, Let Your Spirit Soar. And she is part of the Hot 100. This is mature individuals expressing themselves through their art, whether it's as a therapist or their art as an artist. And the irony for me is when I think of Lois, and she and I collaborate, we lead courses called Happy No Matter What Now, and our space is happiness and joy. To me, who Lois is an artist. And when I think of her, I don't think of her as the therapist. She doesn't even know this. I think of her as a visual artist and a gifted painter. And it brings me such joy to have her here to share the journey that she has been on. Lois lives in New England. And right now, that picture behind her is so perfect because she's in Florida having the time of her life. So welcome, Lois. And where I want to start with the question.
And just, I have to interrupt 1 second. I just did tell you, like, it brought me to tears, what you said, because it has been my life's work. And I see the fruition of living a long life. So thank you for honoring my purpose and passion. Very much so. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And so it's perfect because the question that I wanted to ask you is completely connected to what you just said. So thank you for asking me to pause so that you could share about your purpose and your passion. So at this point in your life, Lois, what matters most to you? And take as long as you want.
That's a really big question. And I have a very big appetite of things that matter. I mean, the most important thing, of course, honestly, is my family, the love of my family, and that includes all of them, all of the tribe of my family that originated from my grandparents. So I care about all of them, and there's a lot of them. So that's really the wind under my wings, and it's the grounding that I walk on every day. Second to that, really, right now for me, is my joy of being able to be creative in so many ways I've never had quite like this before, because I haven't had the space and the time to let, do you call it your spirit soar? Yeah. I really haven't had the time like I have here. And so does that answer? I don't want to go too far out, but
it's Lois, I love the question, because I think that depending upon where we are in our life cycle, that there's kind of it's almost the default, and it's not a default like in a bad way. As we mature, at the end of the day, what matters most are the people in our lives. Whether
absolutely,
that's our spouses, our kids, our grandchildren, our
absolutely,
friends,
yeah,
that somewhere we know that at the end of the day, jobs, money, and all these things kind of come and go, and so do
right.
people.
Because in my family, particularly my own nuclear family, my husband, I've been married 50 years to the same man.
It's
I
amazing.
mean, right. So he's been such an incredible support of me, as I have been of him. But we have just grown and developed kind of into fullness, the fullness of, like there's a tree down here called the shade lady shade, something like that. And it always reminds me of the fullness of women. We grow in body form, we grow in our minds, we grow in our hearts. And my family has given me so much to grow from through the extreme challenges, many challenges, many challenges, lots of early trauma. But through that, I've learned so much and grown so much. And the tapestry of who I am now is, if I were to paint it, I would have all the people all over my body, almost influencing who I have become.
It sounds like, because now since we had this, there may be the next painting, whether it's representational or abstract, that somehow captures that.
Oh,
Just the way that you said that, right? The tapestry, and whatever that looks like and gets expressed through you. Something that so is there anything else about that you want to share?
well, I mean, we spoke the other day and you asked me how I'm doing, and I said I'm on fire.
Yes.
And
So tell me about that.
and that is how it's been. I mean, I have I'm renting this unit down here. I don't know if you can
Yep.
see my art studio out there.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
So I'm renting a unit. I hope the renters don't get upset that I'm using their furniture as a art table. But I've just been painting furiously. And I think environment is really important to supporting who we are. I have expanded down here in ways that I haven't felt up north, honestly, ever. The sun, as many of us, we often have something called SAD. I'm sure you know what it is, seasonal affective disorder. And a lot of us who live up in the Northeast have that. And I certainly had bouts of that too. And being down here in the sun, I have not had one day of feeling discouraged or negative or victimized. I mean, not one day. The sun has been, I understand why people, Ponce de Leon came to Florida. I mean, I understand why people follow the sun. And it's just, so my art has just been painting all feminine. It's bringing the feminine out in me. Because I don't ever paint water. I don't paint like this.
Right.
And so this environment is so soft that it's touching my soft side. And so it's exciting because I've never had the soft side. I've been a male, kind of masculine oriented kind of woman, getting a lot of stuff done, doing a lot of stuff, business development, etc. But this is accessing another part of me that I've not felt before. So how about that?
Right. I have to tell you, by the way, you're so radiant. That's part of, I mean, we're on Zoom, but what's coming seriously, what's coming from the inside is that sunlight. And I think that you point to something, and this may be something that in the time that we have together, that we can be thinking about together. And because I think we both we both kind of operate in a good way from, okay, how do we take things so that they don't seem arbitrary? Right? Because a lot of times they're like, oh, I don't know how that happened. But you're pointing to, okay, like, what are the things in terms of being vibrant, being alive? Well, it's one thing to be aware of is your environment. Whether the
Absolutely.
environment is a physical environment, I call it the environment of people, places, and things. And you're pointing to, so this again is for our listeners. Okay, so being attuned, this isn't new thinking, but you're really pointing to that shift. And even if you can't, I'm just thinking, even if you're here, I'm in New England, you're in Florida right now, and it's a sunny day. So how do we create that sunshine when we are in an environment where the sun isn't shining, whether it's heat lamps or I don't know, something. But
Well,
I
one of
think
the
it's a
things that
really valuable point.
I'm gonna just comment on that because, as you know well, Anne, you and I have been in the Happy for No Reason training, given by Marcy Shimoff, who's an amazing, wonderful, beautiful soul who spreads her happiness everywhere. And one of the things that she talks about in the 7 pillars of raising your happiness level is make your cells happy. Make your cells happy. And one of the ways that my cells get happy is by listening to music.
Right.
And so if you're in an environment where you can't seem to find your way to the sun, which I understand, believe me, music really, really helps. Or even having pictures in your house that remind you that there is sun somewhere, that there's a different kind of life somewhere else, and that you can spend a little time in that picture, in that imagining that in your mind, which can tap into and build some of the serotonin. Exercise is another wonderful thing to build endorphins and to make yourself feel better. In fact, Anne, I just came off of the exercise bike for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to lift my spirit in preparation for you. And I said, well, 10 minutes will help.
Yeah.
20 jumping jacks will help.
Yeah.
So getting the body moving is a big part of making yourself feel better.
And Lois, it's this is really for all of our listeners, because part of why what I've created is called the art of aliveness. Let your spirit soar. Is I'm in an investigation. That's kind of part of the intention of these podcasts. Is what's the mindset? What are the habits? What are the practices that are maybe common amongst creative individuals who are creative as they have matured? And I love what you said, and I want to go back to the what matters, because I think that it's kind of when I was saying about the default, that the proper answer for us is my family, my husband, my children, number one priority, right? Which is, and it is, the people in our lives. But if we could peel that layer away.
Oh, yeah.
And say, so what really at this point in life matters to me? I've taken care of that matter, like literally and figuratively.
I understand that. And
being happy,
and it's
being
actually
enjoy, loving myself, loving my life. That really matters to me right now.
well,
at this point in my life.
Thank you for, I want to say one of the reasons I think I am doing so incredibly well right now is my family is taken care of.
Right.
And we had a really hard year, as you know, with COVID. One of our family members really suffered quite a lot. And, we all rose to the occasion and gave a lot of love and care. And and that person has recovered and is resilient and happy. And now that my family is, as you say, taken care of in a certain kind of way, I do really feel it's my time. Like, I really feel that for the first time in my life, like my joy, my happiness, my decisions, where I go, what I do, it's kind of like a new me. I don't feel the burden of the
Okay.
shoulds in the way that I used to. I just don't. Um, some of my role models, which I think are really important for all of us to have, I love supporting women, saying, please think about women role models, whether it's, you know, Alicia Keys or Eleanor Roosevelt. I mean, look at these people and say, what do I love about them? Well, I can have that too. I can have that too. What are they doing? I'll do what they do. But one of my role models has always been Margaret Mead, who is I'm sure everyone knows who she is. She's an amazing anthropologist who did a lot of study of diversity. And in my mind, she really followed her true calling early on in life. And she did what most people would never do. I mean, she studied cultures in different places all over the world that people would still be afraid to travel to today. And so she was an explorer, and I so identify with exploring. I just love that. There's so much to explore in life, and I'm just on fire about that.
So thank you. Yeah, and when we had spoken, we were talking about Margaret Mead and who did I say whose name I keep forgetting? Oh my God. Who was in the Southwest?
Oh, Georgia O'Keeffe.
Georgia O'Keeffe, and as artists, and again, I use art loosely, that growing up in a male dominant, as it were, world, most of the visual artists that we admire or relate to, just historically for all of us, and I was an art history student, and they were men, and that we have a Margaret Mead as a leader in anthropology and a role model for us, that the Georgia O'Keeffes that are there. And I think so much of what this series is about, and my intention, is that you, Lois, are a role model, and my commitment is for your voice as a role model for our peers, for your kids, for your grandchildren, for future generations, that Lois Arthur becomes someone that other people look at and say, I have that in me too. And she is an inspiration for me. And it's, so I think I think it's just brilliant the way you framed it in terms of the power of having someone who we look to, who's an inspiration. And you are an explorer, there's no question about your adventurous spirit working with you, where it's like, okay, let's just, great, let's, build a plane in the air, start starting, we'll figure it all out along the way. It'll all turn out. It'll all turn out.
Well, Anne,
I hope that captures, but I hope that captures that message, because to me, that's who you are. And that's why I asked you to do this with me, because you are a messenger for that.
well,
and an
Anne,
inspiration to me.
Anne, you are that to me as well.
That's why we get to play together.
I know you're
something
interviewing me, but you've also been, you've also been like an incredibly supportive, creative, oh God, woman in my life, a wonderful friend. And so you have given me so much too, in my development, and that you're part of the tapestry of my body.
something that I never have asked you, by the way. So there's two things. If you want to comment, just kind of this, you're back to the origin story, like why, with all the things you could have done, the pathway, and it may have been strategic and practical, by the way, which for our generation, the kind of the conversations about just starved as an artist. My dad was an artist, but he was not a starving artist. So my perspective on creativity in the arts is different, because he was very successful and internationally renowned. So I have a very different experience of that pathway as an artist. So if there's something you want to comment about, okay, you're at the crossroads and then you choose and you become a psychotherapist all these years. So that's one piece. If you want to comment about that, and you've mentioned, just some of your upbringing, not upbringing so much, but your childhood experience and earlier life, which I know a little about. So if there's anything you want to share about that, that kind of is all
Well,
part of the tapestry. Hold on. And then
yeah.
and the next piece that I've never asked you is, when did you start painting? Because I've always and ever known you as an artist, not
That's
as a
true.
therapist.
It's really true.
So I don't know the origin story about you and your creative expression through visual media. So there's kind of two tracks. You choose one, the other, both. It's your floor.
Well, thank you, Anne. And I really want to hear more about your dad's work. I'm very curious about that. Well, purpose and meaning. Purpose and meaning has always been what's driven my life. And as a young person, I was uh, my father owned a monument business, and so I was exposed very early on to the
Right.
sorrows.
Funeral, like cemetery monuments,
Yeah,
not like monuments, like a Trump Tower monument.
no.
Okay, I didn't know that.
My grandfather developed a monument business after World War II. And it was actually one of the smartest things he did from a business standpoint, because I don't need to explain that any further. But my father had a very successful monument business. And so it was a wonderful business. But I was exposed to a lot of sorrow very early on, in kind of a, not in a grief-stricken way, but in a reality way, in like, this is what happens and this is how you deal with it. And we need to, people need to have evidence of their loved ones, and we're going to provide gravestones for them. And so I used to watch my dad. I used to work with him, and he would, these bereaved people would be coming in and talking about their family members that had died, and my father was so empathic. He was a grief counselor, but then he also was a salesman. So
Yeah.
he had both aspects of that. So I was exposed very early to loss, and that really shaped my view of the world, because I knew that you can't take life for granted. It is so precious. You never know when you could lose somebody. And I learned that early on. And my mom also suffered from a pretty significant depression when I was a teenager. It was her first uh, difficulty with very severe depression. And of course, at the time, I was the one that stayed home. Everybody else was in college, and I was there taking care of my mom. So my desire to become a psychotherapist was driven by the need to, I mean, really, most of us go in to fix our families, to be honest with you, or,
Or ourselves in some
or
way.
ourselves. So I was just, that appetite I have was, I'm going to make things better. I'm going to be that agent of change. I am going to change this. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make it better. Well, you know how life has a way of teaching us so many things. But in reality, Ann, I have been a really positive influence on my family and my history. I have, in that, look, I'm like, see, we had six, and no one lived past 65, and one died at 50, and one died at 40. And here I am, gonna live to 100. I hope, with friends like you.
20 at least.
So that really shaped my early years. And because in psychology and philosophy, which is what I studied, you just know that change is possible. You have to believe it, but it is, and I'm evidence of it. And so that shaped my very wonderful practice of working in the field of psychology in prisons and hospitals and 9/11. And I've done a lot of wonderful work. And helped develop the smoking cessation program in Massachusetts with the Department of Public Health. Done a lot of things to create change. So it was about, and that's been very satisfying work for me, extremely satisfying, and I'm still doing it, and I love working in the field of psychology. But my dear friend, Karma Kitai, who's an artist and a writer and a psychotherapist, she just dragged me along about 20 years ago, and she said, we're taking an art class together.
Awesome.
And my God, I want to identify the woman who taught us the art back then. Let me see, it's Sandra. I can't remember her last name. I'm going to try to think about it because she was wonderful. And there were three of us, psychotherapists, four of us, who started taking a collage class together. And in Sandra's house. And she's a wonderful artist as well. My gosh, I can't remember her name. But we started there. And Carmen was like, okay, well, now that we're done with that, let's do another one, and let's do another one. And she really, I needed that support. I needed her to say, let's try this, and let's do this, and let's do that. And every year we would then go to the Truro Center for the Arts down on the Cape, and we did a Encaustic week-long training in working with Encaustics, because I ended up falling in love with Encaustics, which relates.
All right, will you share with our listeners Encaustics what that is? Because people may not know.
Encaustic is an ancient form of, this is fascinating, really. Encaustics is an ancient form of art, and is what the Egyptians used to paint on the coffins back in, I don't even know, BC sometime. I don't remember the date. So it's hot wax mixed with pigment, and then it's a liquid. It's a very liquid form, and in order to paint it, you need a torch or a heat gun. And I find it fascinating to me that it was formed back in the Egyptian days for caskets, and here I was raised in monuments, and it's like full circle. It's
my mind, I'm like sitting there going, there are no accidents. Like, isn't that interesting that would be the art form? Because it's all about memorializing, and saving. If you think about like the Egyptian tombs and all of that artwork, it was all about recognizing or saving people, longevity, immortality, whatever all of that is, that messaging. So I think that's fascinating.
It's so fascinating. And my grandfather, so with Encaustic, what it is, and it's a really fun art form to play with, but you layer and layer and layer and layer. I mean, some people do 40 layers, in some amazing artists. Sometimes they make these little sculptures because it takes a hard form after you work with it, and it's liquid. You put it in the freezer, and then it sort of freezes it, and people sculpt with it.
Wow.
And my grandfather was a sculptor, because that's what the gravestones were about. Back then, they used to draw and then hand carve everything. So that's another interesting thing to me, that I landed up in that work. But right now what I'm doing is, it's called cold wax. And the reason I transitioned is because I love to travel. I cannot bring all the hot wax with me. It's torches and heat guns. They're not going to let you take that stuff on the plane. It's too much to travel with. So I've been studying with a woman down here. Her name is Jessie Pollock. She's a wonderful cold wax artist. She also is an encaustic artist. And so I've transitioned into cold wax. She's also mixing pigments, but the wax is cold. It's not a liquid. And it's, again, layering and layering, but it has such an incredible translucent. It's a very different feel than the encaustics, as a translucent feeling to it, a lighter feeling to it, and it's easy to travel with. And so, yeah,
it's, I want to point to, and this was something that when we spoke the other day, that part of there's creativity that's artistic, and this is what I love about you, that one of the many things is the creativity, the product, the encaustic, the painting, whatever all of that is. And then there's creativity in the range of adaptability. And it was something that you said, that part of this journey for you has been at this point, even with your own creative expression, that you adapted, that you kind of said, you know, the circumstances are unwieldy to travel, da, 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 but this is my medium. How can I bring my creativity, not the quote unquote artistic and product creativity, but the creative thinking, a mindset that's, and I think as we progress in life, that a lot of people get fearful, or they haven't been exercising that muscle of adaptability, and they get stagnant, and then they get more contracted, and they get more scared, more concerned. But I think that, you know, you and I talk about this all the time, the life force gets contracted as well. So part of creativity not only is a mindset, but what you said to me the other day, Anne, you know, I realized, yeah, part of my message is you got to adapt, you know, because was I going to stop my creative expression because I changed environments? No, I had to kind of figure out, well, what do I do? So is there anything else you want to say about it?
I
I was so
do. I do
struck when
want
we
to
talked
say,
about that.
I do want to say something about this. This is another major breakthrough for me as a woman of my age. I had a lot of judgments about coming to Florida. Oh, I go to Central America. I don't go to Florida.
That's really great, by the way. So Lois probably should take us on a tour of Costa Rica. So when she says Central America, because again, she was like, of the people that I know, she was one of those people that was going to Costa Rica, I think, before it was in vogue.
Oh,
Because she's an
25 years, maybe
explorer,
30 years. Yeah.
right? 30 years as an explorer. People, Costa Rica, where the heck is that? And Lois was there, you know, spending time, adventuring. So her spirit, you
My
know,
husband was my wonderful, adventurous husband.
whether he was or whether he was or wasn't, he got to be with Lois the Explorer, which is great. So go on. I interrupted,
So,
but I do
well,
want to point
but
to.
yeah. So what I want to say is, um, the people. So the people down here are from, many of them are from the Midwest,
Interesting.
and I
Lois
must.
is on the west coast of Florida, correct?
Yeah, we're in Fort Myers, which is about an hour uh, south of Sarasota.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, I have not met one person that hasn't been kind and generous and friendly and just warm and like that. And I decided when I came down here, I was going to drop the New England judgmental attitudes and open my heart and really get to know these people as an explorer, to explore who they are rather than to judge them. And I can't tell you what, that's been a giant shift for me. I think, you know, we come into this world with so many judgments about what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad. And we need that developmentally. We need to know right from wrong as children. That's a developmental task we all must go through when we're in our latency age, knowing the right from wrong. But when you take that fixed mindset, everywhere you go, how could you possibly enjoy new things? So I just have loved the people down here, and they have made such great friends, and so it just adds to kind of the happiness of this tapestry by not judging people.
Great.
Uh, you know,
And
I had my
and I
judgment.
think, Lois, I think what you point to is, you know, the first step of transformation. And you are a leader in transformation. And I define that as really creating new realities. And it is a cognitive and perceptual shift. And the first step is awareness. So even most people aren't even aware when they are judging, assessing, alienating, shutting down, um, kind of making themselves different or separate from, which is all part of what it does. I mean, there's all the, and both of our backgrounds in terms of the mechanism of stereotypes and belonging and people's fear of belonging and not belonging, and then all the structures that we get in place to feel connected. And we don't always realize that a lot of these beliefs that we have unexplored, not even noticed, are the things that have us feel isolated.
That's beautiful.
Our
You built
judgments,
that in.
so I mean, I give you just so much credit for being aware of, wow, I'm really, I'm assuming like the fault. And this is the whole conversation for me in the space of age is all of these false assumptions. And unexamined, we are so inundated with messaging of whether we call it ageism or difference or discrimination. They're all, there's a whole other conversation. But judgment is a way of discerning and discriminating. And there's good judgment. It's being able to assess things without it being that the assessment then becomes our reality. So it's just an interesting dynamic.
Anne, I just want to get back to one thing. I just remembered the artist who mentored me when we first started. Her name is Sandra Schulman.
Okay.
And she's out in Cambridge or Somerville, Massachusetts. And she, I think finding people who mentor us, and it's very important. And I just want to honor her and thank her for that. So I wanted to get you guys her name. She's written several books too, about kind of tapping into the unconscious through your art. She's a very interesting woman to work with. So thank you, Sandra.
She's still alive, Lois?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. So I'll call her and say, I'm doing a podcast series, and Lois said I should talk to you.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I will talk to Sandra.
She's amazing. Sandra is like a PhD in German studies or something like that, and left the world of academia to become an artist. So she would be a very interesting one to talk to.
So I'm kind of keeping an eye on our time, and a couple of things that what I didn't know is that as a mature adult, so wife, mom, professional, all of that, 20 years ago, a friend said, come along with me. And that opened up the floodgates. And it may have been in a collage class, but it was set, it's like, okay, like all of that. So I think part of this is our creativity knows no age restriction. That as a mature woman, not a retired woman, by the way, a mature professional, that somebody said, come along and play with me, girlfriend. And that became the access for you to tap into this amazing gift that you have. That maybe you didn't even know about, or maybe you sensed. So that to me is also, that the art of aliveness at any given moment. And one of the things that I share is my mom used to knit, and then she stopped knitting. And then when she was 92, she came to live with me. And I said, Mom, we got to get you knitting again. My mother went on a purpose-driven campaign, and she started to make scarves for everyone in the family.
Oh.
And I say she died with scarf in progress. Still have the last project. I think she probably did at least a dozen scarves. The one that I got, by the way, was the one that she said, here, you can have this one, because I don't think she really liked the yarn. It turned out. I mean, I have all of them except the one she gave to all my kids and nieces and nephews and her grandchildren. But we got her at 92. She picked up her knitting needles again. So creativity and the expression of that is timeless, and it's ageless. We all have that. And then sometimes it emerges from us, or sometimes it's a friend who says, come along with me. We're going on an adventure together.
And one of the things I want to comment on, in all the thousands and thousands of people I've worked with in my career, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. There is not one single person who is the same as the next. Not one.
Right.
And that's why I love this work, because everybody is so unique. So every single person has something unique to them that I encourage them to find and give to the world. It's actually sharing some beauty to the world that they've never seen because they don't have it. And I just really love that notion.
So cute. All right. So I had, and it's perfect because I want to complete with a question. If there were one, and you may just have done it, if there was one piece of advice or a message you would want to get to people.
Oh, I know
You
what
got
it
a
is.
million of them, Lois.
I'm very clear on what it is.
So what's the message?
Be curious.
Okay.
Stay curious and lead from your heart.
Okay. And as somebody who is a coach and a therapist and an artist, what would be one, what would you recommend to our listeners if there were one action that they could take in the next 24 hours from having watched this or listened to this? What would be one action? I'm putting you on the spot. If you could think of your recommendation, what would be an action that you would suggest that people take? And it may be on behalf of their curiosity, their heart. So I just throw that out to you.
I think my one suggestion would be to listen to your dreams, to really pay attention to what you're dreaming unconsciously or while you're sleeping.
Right.
I live by that. I had a dream. Can I share this one little dream?
Yeah. Oh, it's fine.
I had a dream a couple nights ago, and there was something like there were like 3 doors, and I kept having trouble closing the last door. I couldn't quite close it, and I kept going back, and I wanted to close it. And the way I interpret that dream is that my life is in the beginning and the middle, and now we're at the end. And that door to me represents I have a lot more to complete before I can close the door.
Right.
So that was a dream I had, and that's how I interpret it. And it's so consistent with where I feel I need to still be going right now. I'm not ready to close the door. I have a lot more to do before I close the door. So listen to your dreams and share your dreams with people. Share them with someone. Don't be afraid to have an outrageous dream.
So we invite you, our listeners and viewers, to go back, and I'm going to use Lois's analogy. If you think about your dreams, is there a door that you've closed and you don't realize that you've closed? And one action that you could take would be to open that door and write down what was behind that door. What was the dream that you gave up on?
I love that, Anne.
Post-it note, take a Post-it note, write it, put it in a place we claim, and do it within the next 24 hours.
I
It
love
doesn't
that.
take a long time.
Let's see if they'll even share with us those dreams. Is there a way that they can share with you what they've?
So we have our Facebook page called Happy No Matter What Now. And please go to our Facebook page, Happy No Matter What Now. I have the Art of Aliveness. Lois, let people know how they can find you. We We're on LinkedIn. But Lois, what's the best way if people want to reach out to you to find you?
Oh my gosh. I would say LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn is a good way if they want to communicate with me. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So Lois is brilliant and amazing. So Lois, if there was one word that would describe how you're left out of being with me, hanging out on our podcast today, what would that one word
I
be?
have so much gratitude for you, Anne. I love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's just been wonderful for me to hear myself and also to spread this to the world so that people can have this too. They can be the victors of their own life.
Thank you for joining the Art of Aliveness Chronicles with Annie B. I'm Ann Borow-Lawrence. Join us next time for more great interviews with inspiring artists, all backgrounds, shapes, and sizes, where we will be investigating just what is it that keeps people alive, vital, and vibrant in mind, body, and spirit throughout their lifetimes. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with your friends. Please like the podcast series and please do subscribe. With much love and gratitude, and see you the next time.